Hi, this is Dr. Bob Dannenhoffer with COVID Conversations and more. We have a special guest today with Kyle Temple from the Douglas Fire Protective Association. And he's going to talk to us a little bit today about wildfire, especially the dangers posed by fires and by the smoke that they generate. We have just a short COVID update today. We're seeing a little spike of cases, probably due to the BA2 variant. Most of those cases have been pretty mild, and our number of hospitalizations are low. Nonetheless, the people who've had it say they still feel pretty sick. What we have noticed, however, is that people who are vaccinated, and especially people who are up to date on vaccines, are having very mild symptoms. So again, if you are not vaccinated or not up to date, please get a vaccine to get up to date. The other thing that we're seeing is that we have lots of antivirals around. So if you happen to come down with COVID, please talk to your provider about getting an antiviral to reduce your risk of severe disease or hospitalization. So that's where we are on COVID. With us today, Kyle from DFPA, and we'll talk a little bit about wildfire. So welcome, Kyle.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a really important topic. So tell us what you're seeing as our wildfire risk for this season.
So Douglas County is currently experiencing a high rate of drought. Leading into the month of April, we were about 15 inches behind on our average annual rainfall. Now, obviously, the month of April, we had a very heavy amount of rain that came through, and we've got a little reprieve on that. We probably gained back about 7 or 8 inches worth. However, we are still in a period of drought, and so that's going to have an effect. And with the rain coming late in this kind of fall spring, what that's also helping to do is create a lot of green up in the understory brush and grasses under the canopy layer of the timber.
So there's green up is just that small stuff that grows. And how does that contribute to fires in the fall?
So any fuel that we have on the ground is going to be kind of a light, flashy fuel that will help to ignite significantly easier than, say, large diameter timber. And so that helps to lead to a quick spread as that fuel dries out. It's a lot more affected by the day-to-day temperatures and the day-to-day relative humidity. And so as we start to get into July and August, you're going to see where that fuel dries out really quickly, making it more susceptible to a wildfire and a carrier of fire. And then as that green up grows, that can allow fire to potentially become a ladder fuel to reach the canopy of our forests. And so that's something as a homeowner that we want to be real cognizant of to make sure that we're taking care of that understory hazardous fuel that's growing currently.
And that understory stuff is especially prone to fires started by campfires or other human-caused fires, where we tend to cause fires near the ground, whereas lightning tends to cause fires at the top of trees.
Yeah. Last year, the Douglas Forest Protective Association responded to 139 fires in Douglas County. Our 10-year average is 110 fires, so we were up slightly. But of those 139 fires that we responded to, 100 of those are human-caused fires. And so we really are trying to get a message out and educate people that the easiest fire for us to fight is one that never starts. And with 100 of our 139 being human-caused fires, we want to make sure that we're educating the public on regulated use and being certain that people are going to put out their fires and take care of any brush piles well before we start to get this hot, drying weather that will come in as the summer becomes upon us.
And we certainly have seen some large fires in the past few years coming from things such as campfires or mowing or burn piles that get out of control. So can you give us hints for those three areas?
Yeah, so obviously mowing is in grass, light, flashy fuel. It has a low ignition point when it starts to dry out. And so every summer, the state of Oregon, county by county, ODF and association districts like DFPA go into a regulated use where landowners are not allowed to mow dry, cured grass for risk of, say, a lawnmower hitting a rock and causing a spark. So we want to make sure that we're educating the public on that, that they're adhering to those regulated use closures. And then things like burn piles, as you mentioned, the springtime when we get a lot of rain is a great time for landowners to burn piles from the previous year, brush, hazardous fuel that they had cut down and left maybe a tarp over to dry out. But we also want to make sure that we're doing a really good job of putting those brush piles out. They can hold heat, especially if they have a lot of dirt component into them, so they can hold heat for a really long time. And when we start to get those east drying winds come through, if those piles haven't been extinguished completely, a month or so later, you can easily have a spark that escapes that pile, and that can start a wildfire. So we really want to be cognizant of what we have going when we're burning burn piles, burn barrels, and making sure that those are well out before we go into regulated use and declared fire season.
Well, we all love camping. And so do you have suggestions for people who might have a campfire?
So again, with regulated use and fire season, campfires are only allowed in a designated campfire ring. And so if you're at a park that has a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer designated campfire ring, you would be allowed to have that campfire there as long as the campground has the ability for you to have that. We wouldn't want to be going out into the woods and starting campfires, especially as we reach this June time where we're going to start to have our humidities lowering and our temperatures increasing. We would want to make sure that any campfires that we would have, throughout the month of May before we declare fire season, we would drown those fires at the end, stir them up, drown them, and we want to make we can, with the back of our hand, touch that ground and it's nice and cold. But we definitely don't want to have campfires escaping because people don't take care of putting those out.
Yeah, we drove up the Umpqua last weekend, and it was just horrifying to see the effect of the fires before. Do we think those areas that burned previously are going to be at risk again this year?
A lot of that is going to be weather dependent and human caused fire dependent. Obviously, we have a very heavy fuel load up the Umpqua now based on dead fuel from the Archie Creek fire and other previous historic fires that have gone through that area. That creates a lot of snags in the area that are susceptible to burning. And so our best course of action is to make sure that we're educating the public, that we're vigilant in being smart about how we interact in the woods to helpfully not have any human caused fires. But there's always that possibility that Mother Nature comes through and could start a lightning caused fire in that vicinity.
Yeah. So wildfires affect us in many ways. One of the most important ways, obviously, is the fire gets near someone's home. So do you have recommendations for what people can do at their own homes to reduce the risk of fire affecting their houses?
Absolutely. So we typically define the first 200 feet around a dwelling unit as defensible space. And we would encourage landowners to make sure that they're taking care of any hazardous fuel. If they have trees that are growing close together, maybe look at spacing those trees out, thinning out those trees, typically a 10-foot spacing. And then also limbing up material on those trees to 8 feet off the ground so there's no ladder fuels that can carry anything into the canopy. On top of that, what they're really starting to find is that those large flame fronts that come through aren't necessarily what is going to burn down a home. It's more the embers that are cast. And so we need to really take a look at what we have around our homes, make sure that we're removing wood piles. They shouldn't be stored against our homes. And something as simple as lawn furniture. In the event of a large wildfire, you would want to make sure that that lawn furniture is removed from the edge of your home, even though the majority of us probably store those on our back porch. And then really simple is just cleaning out your gutters. Gutters carry a lot of pine needles and leaf litter that can be ignited very easily by embers cast from a wildfire. So continual cleaning out of gutters is another major component.
Well, those are going to be important things for us to do, and now's the nice time to do it when that stuff is still not very flammable. The other big public health effect we see from fires is wildfire smoke. And certainly over the last few years, we've had some really bad smoke days. Is there some recommendation you give to people who may be distant from the fire who would be exposed to smoke?
The biggest thing is probably being able to stay indoors. The smoke, is going to travel based upon our trade winds and how that smoke travels through the air. And so being able to stay indoors and avoid outdoor activities, arduous activities where you're going to be heavily breathing in that smoke is going to be your best bet.
Great. And in addition, we know that in people's houses, using either air purifiers or air conditioners can really reduce the smoke burden. While we can use masks, it's certainly better to make your house a cleaner space and to stay indoors during the time we might have lots of smoke in the future. We have lots of KN95 masks for people who want them. And so if we start getting another smoky time, we'll be able to get those for people in the community. So Kyle, any last words on how we can protect ourselves from fire this summer?
Let's just make sure to stay vigilant out in the woods when we're recreating, making sure that we're not doing any activities that could cause a wildfire. And if you see smoke, please be sure to call 911 or call the DFPA office so that we can send individuals to suppress that fire as quickly as possible and keep them small.
Well, Kyle, thanks for joining us, and we'll have you back as things dry out and we start having higher fire and smoke danger. Again, this is Dr. Bob Dannenhoffer, the Public Health Officer for Douglas County. Thank you for joining us, and we'll do this again later in the week when we'll talk about another big problem in our community, congenital syphilis. Thanks again. We'll see you later this week.